output gap. So we would have to draw it like this. SRAS, AD. So remember, that is the actual output. In a recession, it must be less than our potential, which is why LRAS must be here. YF, Y1, PL1, price level, and real GDP. Now, let's say the government doesn't want this to happen, so they intervene, which will either be government spending up or taxes down. Now, what is the effect here? AD will shift to the right, ideally up to the point to close the output gap if the government decided to inject the right amount of money into the economy. And this happens here. Now, in this scenario, real GDP goes up, price level goes up, and unemployment rate goes down because we're producing more output equals more workers. So all of this can also be shown on the money market graph, where we have the nominal interest rate, quantity of money, then remember, only the central bank can shift the money supply curve. In this scenario, this is fiscal policy. Fed didn't do anything, therefore MS does not change. Then lowercase I. However, with a higher price level, more GDP, that means two things. Higher price level means everything costs more, consequently we need more money, right? We're producing more. How can we afford that? We need to pay workers more, we need more resources, etc. Therefore, money demand goes up and interest rate goes up. There's that. Now we can also connect that to the Phillips curve. So, LRPC, inflation, unemployment rate. I'm just going to abbreviate that. Please don't do that on the exam. Now, SRPC. Remember I told you this is not necessarily our equilibrium, right? Because are we initially in long run equilibrium? No, we're not. We're here in a recessionary output gap, which means low inflation, high unemployment. So that is the corresponding point here. We said price level goes up. That means we have inflation, but unemployment rate goes down and we're back at equilibrium. Remember, shifts in AD correspond on the SRPC with a movement. But SRAS and SRPC inverse shifts. And same with LRAS and LRPC as we saw earlier. All right, let's discuss crowding out. That means government finances spending by borrowing, so they conduct deficit spending. So government borrowing goes up. So how or on which graph do we show that? Loanable funds, real interest rate, quantity loanable funds. Now we have the supply of loanable funds and the demand of loanable funds. Now our equilibrium lines, QLF1 and R1. So two options: either the supply goes down because the government's ability to save decreases because they're borrowing more, they're spending more, therefore they can save less. Or the one that might be more straightforward is an increase in the demand for loanable funds. Now, higher real interest rate. Which graph relates to this? Our new one, Forex. So let's say this is in the US. So we would put quantity USD. Now let's say we're comparing it to the euro. Now in this scenario, the interest rate would have increased, right? So first of all, it's a basic supply and demand graph. Because remember, we can trade currencies, lowercase e, and here always the other currency in terms of this currency, okay? Let me put a line here. Okay, now, again, two options. Higher interest rate means Americans keep money in US, on the US, so supply would go down. Or the demand goes up because foreigners now want to invest their money here. They want to earn the higher interest rates. And therefore, as we can see, the US dollar has appreciated. So, appreciated. What will this now do to the net exports? They will decrease as a result. Because exports go down, because foreigners don't want to pay that high price, right? You always have to see, whenever you buy an import, you pay the price for that good plus the exchange rate on top. So that is too expensive now. Plus, we would demand more imports as those are now relatively cheaper for us. All of this leads to the current account increasing and the capital and financial account decreasing because both of these must equal 0. Okay. Now, this would mean we have capital outflows, which will eventually then lead to less supply of loanable funds, because remember, whenever we have capital inflows, supply of loanable funds goes up. Now this graph, we can also connect, this scenario, we can also connect to the aggregate demand and supply graph, because that would be this, right? So the government wouldn't just borrow money to put it in a bank to earn interest. They will do that to spend, so that would also be an increase in aggregate demand. So this whole thing we can show in here, and then we could show these other graphs.